Hi, good evening. We're going to call the February 20th Board Work Session meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the public is hereby advised of the audio and video recording of this meeting for the purposes of rebroadcasting. By way of attendance,
there's an executive session.
Oh, this next?
White piece of paper. Put on your table. There it is.
Okay. I would also like to announce that it was an executive session of the board held in the Farina Administration Building on January 25th, 2018, for the purpose of discussing matters of litigation with SWD 101 LLC and WNR 38 LLC and Board of Assessment Appeals of Montgomery County. By way of attendance, everybody is here except Aubrey Larsenes. Now we're on to recognition of guests and scheduled speakers, and I will turn it over to Dr. Zerbe.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Drummond. This evening we have one presentation. We have Mr. Roberts and Mrs. Brucker, both here to present, along with some fathers and some students, a watchdog presentation. And before I steal their thunder and say how wonderful I think this program is, they'll tell you the same, and I'm sure the fathers that are here this evening will say the same. But I gotta bring your attention to Mr. Roberts, who brought this program into the district, and Ms. Brucker, who always knows what's a good idea and replicates things, and so we think that this evening you'll enjoy their presentation and how they're bringing fathers into our schools to help support the learning environment. And if you would be so kind, if we could take our seats in the first row. I think they have a PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll come back and ask questions if you have any. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. That's a tough act to follow with Dr. Zerbe's intro. I wasn't prepared to sing and dance tonight. But that being said, we only have about 100 slides to go through. I'm just kidding. That's about 14. A lot of them are pictures. Some of the information tonight that we'll show you, I actually, and Mrs. Brucker and I, show our dads during the informational night. So at the bottom, in elementary school, you might have noticed we love our little pictures. So this was the beginning slide of our pizza night. So you'll see a gentleman at the bottom with some pizzas. The premise is always, if you feed them, they will come. So the pizza night's been very successful. Along those lines, this year at Arrowhead specifically, we've had about 49 dads sign up already this year, and we've had a lot of repeat dads. In fact, I was talking to the dads before the presentation, and there aren't a lot of open slots this year, so it's been a huge success. A great turnout. And the other thing that I've been really happy about is with the transition and the school consolidation, I think it's been a nice way to mesh the communities into one, specifically, again, just at Arrowhead. So we can go to the next slide. Mrs. Brucker, was there anything you wanted to add?
Just so you know, this is a national program that started out of the need to have dads into the schools to provide positive male role models. And this movement has just gone across the country, and there have been a couple of spin-offs. But when Mr. Roberts brought it in to Arrowhead, he partnered with Home and School, which then, again, shows another community relationship. And in 5 years, you hear the results. I started it at Eagleville, and we had it there for 2 years while I was there, and it started to take off. And then I was at Audubon last year, and I couldn't wait to get it started at Worcester. This year, when we had our pizza kickoff event at Worcester in January, 114 dads showed up. And again, we partnered with Home and School, and then the staff made snacks for the dads for dessert, and it was a huge success.
Thanks, John. So you can see up here, I won't read this slide to you, but this is the ideology of the Watchdog program. And as Mrs. Brooker said, it is a national program. This is just some background information. Actually, we started up in 1998 in Arkansas. And again, some of the benefits, you know, like Mrs. Brooker said, to engage the fathers and have a positive male role model. You know, the dads, when they come in, get a chance to see what their child's school day is like. Many dads will comment, boy, it's a lot different now than it was when I went to school. And I think it's good. It's telling. I mean, the other opportunities that everyone has to come in to see what goes on during the day would just be American Education Week. So I think this gives the fathers just a different perspective about how much it has changed since we all have been in school.
And again, we have moms in the school all the time, and everyone says, oh, you're making a big deal out about dads, but we all know our moms are our moms, and they're always there, and they're the ones always into school. But to have a dad come in to school really is something different. And we want to promote that in such a positive way that in the next slides we'll tell you what the day looks like. So what happens is a Watchdog dad will say they want to sign up, and it is a team effort in our buildings. We use our counselors, our nurse, our reading specialists. We put the call out to teachers. Hey, we have a Watchdog dad coming in. What do you want done? And the responses are usually overwhelming. We want them to work with kids to do sight words. We want them to work on multiplication facts. We guarantee that every Watchdog dad comes in and goes to lunch and special with their child so that they have time to be there. Mr. Roberts?
Yeah, thank you. Many times when we get feedback at the end of the day, they'll say, I'm really, really tired. So as a way to show our appreciation of their day, we do give them a little Scooby snack at the end of the day, along with a photograph of their child. And I believe when you came to visit, we showed you the Wall of Fame, the Watchdog Wall of Fame. And it's been really neat. I mean, I think that one of the biggest success stories, or just one of those moments where you are just really appreciative of the program, is when they surprise their children and the kids don't know, and when the kids come through the door and they see their dad, they'll run up and jump into their arms, and it's awesome to see that. So I've been really, really happy with just how the program has evolved.
And one of the special things we give the dads is when they come in, they get to wear a shirt all day to say that they're a Watchdog dad, or let them know. And at the end of the day, we take their picture and put it on that Wall of Fame that we were talking about. The best story I have, Mr. B, who couldn't be here tonight, he came and he was so excited to be a Watchdog dad, and he came dressed in a button-down shirt, tie. He was ready for the day. Dad, I'm here. I'm going to role model. And we said to him, you want to change? He said, nope, I'm ready. He put the shirt on over top. Not even 30 minutes later, he was in our bathroom changing. He was so hot because he was ready to go out to recess, and he had just gotten done playing the game on the floor. So when our Watchdog dads come in, we ask you to wear sneakers, to be comfortable, because you don't know what you're going to be doing.
That's true. That's true. Thanks, John. So who can be watchdogs? I mean, obviously, a lot of the dads that come in, but we have had grandfathers come in. Haven't had any uncles yet, but it is open to fathers, stepdads, and we advocate and promote, obviously, making sure that everybody gets their clearances, you know, as a volunteer before they come in and participate in the program. These are just some of the things that the Watchdogs do. Mrs. Bruck already alluded to many of them. When they come in at Arrowhead, the gentleman here will tell you, you know, we take care of them. I try to get them coffee and just make them feel welcome. And then we will have the greeting with the children when they get their high fives. We actually do announcements. This year, particularly, the students have been announcing their fathers, which I think is great because it promotes public speaking over the intercom. And then we get our day started by going out and checking all the exterior doors of the building to make sure that we are safe and secure. I do that regardless if the dads are there, but I just think it's an extra way to just, again, make sure, especially in this day and age, that everything is locked up and ready to go. On the schedule, there will be other opportunities for them to go around and check the doors. And as Mrs. Brucker said, they help out in the cafeteria. They definitely have been a big help during recess. It's just been a really, really wonderful program.
And just getting started at Worcester, we have our first dad coming in next Tuesday on the 27th, and then a grandfather coming in for half a day. He said he's got to work up his stamina for the whole day. He'll be coming in 2 weeks. They're most excited about going out to recess with the kids. And if you've ever volunteered or seen recess, we love that. So until they do it, it's a repeat. We get them while we can.
And just one other thing I want to add before we go to the next slide. You'll notice in the middle, or the second to last bullet at the bottom, it says share career information with students. This year in particular, in conjunction with the district strategic plan and the career counseling program, we really have been advocating for the dads to come in and just share their careers with the students and, you know, what they do and the types of skill set that they have to do their careers. And that's been a big help in conjunction with our school counselor, Mrs. Friedman. So she'll take the dads in when she's doing a counseling lesson, and then the dads will talk about their careers with the students. These are some watchdogs in action. You can see here we have that's Mr. Keenan. He is new to Arrowhead this year. His students were at Audubon, his kids, excuse me, were at Audubon last year, so I caught an action shot of him doing some multiplication facts with the kids. They were very engaged. Here is another one. This is Mr. Goldstein, and again, he is helping with some multiplication and some vocabulary flashcards. This was either before or after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, so we were very, very excited about that. This would be a photo that would go up on our Wall of Fame. Another photo of Mr. Singheiser. That's in front of our mural. That's the greeting in the morning. We always kid around with our watchdog dads. If you're a germaphobe, you know, we have hand sanitizer, so please make sure that you use it. But the dads are really great. We've even had some competitions to see who can accumulate the most high fives. We do have them complete a career survey at the end, so that we can, again, integrate that in with our schedule and program. And these are just some other events that we encourage our dads to come to because we have so many volunteers. They've been a tremendous help during Halloween. They've been a great help during Veterans Day, the Arrowhead Challenge that we've had, Field Day, and just other special events. So on these particular days, we may have more than one watchdog dad just helping out.
And with our partnerships, I should say that it's important to note that we do partner with Aramark, that upon agreeing that we have watchdog dads come in, we do guarantee every dad that comes in a free school lunch. So Aramark provides them with lunch for the day. And now, Mr. Roberts will introduce our dads.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Bright. In fact, I think some of the watchdog dads look at what's on the menu before they decide when they're going to sign up. All right, so this is Mr. Sander. He has been a great advocate and proponent of the program, and I asked him to come up because you probably sign up at least once a month. So
I did at some point.
At some point, yeah. So he's been a great supporter, and we're really thankful to have him.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think some of the people on the board know that I'm somewhat involved with this school district and different things, and a lot of that is a result of part of the Watchdog Dad program, because like they said a number of times that it's not like when we were in grade school. I don't know if it's not like when we were, but I certainly, you know, the mindset that you have when you're in grade school versus what you have now to understand what goes on. And it truly is a community type of environment where I didn't realize all of the different people that touched my child in a given day. You know, you think, oh, they go into school, they have one teacher, but you realize how many touches there are from different people and how everybody's important in that role. And I think that really gave me a great appreciation for the way our school district is run and the fact that they really do take the children, you know, their happiness and safety seriously. Another big thing that he was talking about was like on the special events, you know, we're almost like another set of eyes. We're not a security force, obviously, and they tell us that we can't be. But especially on days when there's lots of parents that come to the schools, now that we have like background checks and everything for someone that wants to come in and be a volunteer, what they'll do is they'll station a watchdog dad at different hallways to make sure that parents that haven't gotten their clearances don't make it beyond a certain point. So it's a good safety type of environment. We point out things like cracked sidewalks and all, which I'm sure they're always happy to hear about. But things like that are really good. And then on top of it, as a dad, it's a tremendous thing because your kids love it. All the kids that are on your sports teams love it. And you get all these high fives and just so much fun. And you can see how much fun the kids really, it like lightens up their day, especially, they said recess, because at recess, if you don't have somebody monitoring the kickball game or the football game, it can become very troublesome. And usually when the watchdog dad's there, that becomes his responsibility somewhat. With some oversight, don't get nervous, but we do that. So I love the program. I've been doing it for 5 years since it started, and just really enjoy it. And I think that it's great that you guys take an interest in it and would support it for any of the other schools that might want to take it under consideration. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Luke, my son.
My name is Luke Sandner. I'm in 3rd grade. I think watchdogs are fun. I like eating with my dad at lunch and sharing him with the other kids in my class. Thank you.
Watchdogs create a good environment for students because they make everybody happy, help teachers and children.
All right. Thank you. And up next is Mr. Zavertnik, and unfortunately, both your children decided they didn't want to come and speak, so we're gonna have you. Thanks for coming out, Mike.
They're too chicken, for the record. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share some experiences. Andrew definitely covered many of the thoughts that I was going to cover. But I do want to try to give a perspective of the kids. Each morning when my son drives by, when he's going into the drive lane, he looks to see if somebody is in the watchdog space, if the car's there. If there is a car there, then he knows that a watchdog's there and he's excited. If there's no car there, he's bummed because of the impact that a watchdog has. Not only me as a dad being a watchdog, but of just somebody being there. So I think that kind of speaks for itself, the impact that it's having. And I think from a kid's standpoint, just the personal experience that I found very rewarding is being in not only my son's class, but is being able to find that connection with the kids in the community. Andrew and our oldest sons are both the same age, and I believe they probably came in 2nd grade, the program itself. I felt so much more connected to Arrowhead and the community at large once the program went in, because as kids on my basketball and baseball teams, as I made connections there, it just felt stronger. And even though I went to the nightly events, whether it was a Halloween party or whether it was bingo night, I felt a connection, but it was much stronger once I went through the Watchdog program. So I think even just not only for the school itself, having this program is not only connecting the dads with the kids at that school, but also the community. And I think that makes us a better community overall. So I highly recommend it. Hope you guys open it up to definitely the other elementary schools. And even if there's a modified program for the older kids, I think there's value there. So appreciate the opportunity, and thank you.
All right, that's our song and dance. So I don't know if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask us. We'd be willing to answer them. Oh, sure. Sorry, I don't know the protocol.
Are there any questions from members of the board on the Watchdogs program?
First, let me say, it's a great program. I know, Jen, when you were at Eagleville, I did it once there. I did it the next year while Dr. Reddish was there. It's a fabulous program, and I'll echo everything that Mike and Andrew said about just your engagement with the kids, your involvement with the kids, the opportunity to see your kids in their natural environment. Is really, really fantastic. I spent my day, at recess, hanging up artwork, doing side jobs for teachers. It really was a great program. What's the uptake been at the other schools? So where is it a flourishing program now?
Well, right now, Arrowhead's in its 5th year, so it would be 4th year at Eagleville. It's just starting at Worcester. And Woodland has completely changed, so I'm with Mrs. Euchre, so it's not happening there yet. I think that'll just take some time.
Other questions?
If I can just comment, I think this program is so fantastic, and it's something we should be bragging about. My husband has done it. He's enjoyed it, and I know, seeing the emails coming out of school, we had 6 days left to sign up for the entire year, and I'm sure they went quickly. The kids love the program, and it's fun having your kids know more dads than you do. They build their own network, so thank you for bringing the program in and for continuing to roll it out to the rest of the schools.
I was wondering what, if there's maybe any possibility of bringing this up to Skyview as an upper elementary school. That's just something to consider. And I guess, is there a barrier of entry to get this in the, get it into the other schools? Is there fees associated or anything else to the national organization?
There is a startup fee that we ask Komen School to help partner with us. It's about $375 now, or I think it's $425 now that we paid. Just for the startup kit, you have to listen to a webinar, a phone conference. But after that, it's completely up to you, and you run it however you want to run it. And they give you a lot of suggestions. They give you binders for all of that. There is an elementary and a secondary program.
Is that a one-time, that's a startup fee and not a recurring fee?
No,
Okay,
not a recurring
thank you.
fee, no. It's not a license like you need every year or anything.
Other questions?
I think Worcester will be very excited. I know there are many dads who were there because my children go to Worcester. I'm glad to see that there's structure. I didn't realize that it was a full day. I thought it was just recess. So I think it's great when you add purpose with activity, there's a connection, and it becomes a community. Yeah, I say talk it up so that all the schools will take it, because there will be parents in that community that will be jealous of this program. So thank you for bringing it.
And we do a full day or a half day to accommodate parents and their schedule, like what they can do. And absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that. One of the, we've based the schedule for the dads off of feedback, because we had them complete the survey. So based off their feedback, we've scheduled them throughout the day. So I'll give you an example. We at certain points of the day, they may actually help a teacher out, and we did that because the dads suggested that it's not that they didn't want to be in the classrooms, but they like feeling a part of the school and being a volunteer. That said, we also could have them, depending on the dad and how many children they have, they might have a little bit more of a jam-packed day in some classrooms. So it has been based off of feedback from the dads, and as you noted, it's not just come in and help out during lunch and recess, because we really wanted to get them involved with the children. When I'm walking around during the day just to visit, I am always very excited and thrilled when I see them out practicing the flashcards, or just reading a story with the children, or anything along those lines, because I think it's just, as everyone's saying, another way for a dad to make a connection with our kids.
And I think when you think of personalities, not everybody's a sports dad. You've got the ones that are a little quieter, so being able to talk to them and know what they feel comfortable with, and if a one-on-one teaching them math and helping assist is ideal. So it's great.
Any other questions? If not, I want to say thank you so much, both of you, Aaron, for bringing the program to Methacton, Jen for seeing a good idea and replicating it, and certainly for Dr. Reddish as well. And I know, once we get Woodland going, it'll just continue to perpetuate. Fathers, thank you so much for your time and being with us here this evening. And young men, thank you as well for being with us, and thank you for the nice words. Have a great evening. Appreciate it.
Coming out.
I have a couple other announcements before we move on to the rest of the agenda, if it would be so okay with the board if I do that. The first announcement is the school calendar. Please know that we generally adopt the preceding year's school calendar in February. It's my recommendation that we bring that forward to you in March. With a number of other challenges in front of us, we want to make sure that we get that to you, as well as make sure at the same time we bring forward the planned high school graduation. So those will both be coming to you in March, and in case you as community members are concerned about when that calendar is going to be done, that's when we want to bring that forward. We have certainly a lot to consider. We need to coordinate that with North Mountain Votech. We need to coordinate it with some of our other districts, and just like we normally do, we'll share that with the unions prior to bringing it to the board, and make sure that they've had some input into the process, and hopefully we can find a schedule that works best for us. I'll be working with the high school principal in order to set the high school graduation, and we'll make them, once we approve that, we'll make that announcement. And okay, the next announcement is certainly not one that I'm pleased to bring forward, but certainly it's timely, and I think it's important that we recognize some of the issues in our society and some recent tragedies. So I'm going to read from a statement that I prepared. I'm going to then share the same statement out tomorrow morning with the families in the Methacton community. But following the tragedy at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida, and unfortunately, and today's shooting in Massillon, Ohio, our students and families may have questions about the ways in which Methacton School District works to maintain a safe learning environment. We address safety with a multifaceted approach. The district's efforts include annually, the Methacton administration works with county emergency management services and law enforcement, and local law enforcement, to review its emergency procedures, conduct safety audits, and each building meets every other month as an emergency response team to review, consider, and recommend ways of improving safety on the campuses for our students and staff. By maintaining a close partnership with local law enforcement and countywide emergency planning officials, we are best informed in our planning efforts and are considering best practices in our emergency preparedness and response methods. This is a continuous process. The district's strategic plan leverages our teachers and our administrators working together to develop supports with a focus on the whole child. While listed as a curriculum and instruction matter within the strategic plan, the whole child focus considers the well-being of our children, including the social, emotional, and mental health of the child. The district staff work extremely hard to form positive relationships with students that foster the communication and approachability necessary to support students and families in need. Our school counseling staff are trained in mental health first aid. We have begun to expand the Student Assistance Program, referred to as SAP, that training to the elementary levels. Used primarily in secondary schools, SAP teams made up of teachers, administrators, and outside mental health professionals meet to monitor and assist students and families in a variety of ways. The training that accompanies SAP helps our staff recognize early warning signs and prepares them to communicate concerns and act proactively. We have updated the physical security at several of our schools to increase the safety with the use of technology, door locking mechanisms, and other protocols. And we have added an additional mental health counselor and have run mental health awareness trainings in our community. These are just a number of things. But while the district has done these and other emergency response procedures are in place, it is understandable that the school safety is at the forefront of parents' minds and may generate questions. While most of our families know that we regularly conduct fire drills and weather drills, they may not know that we also conduct regular intruder alerts. In addition, the district developed a safety awareness presentation available on the website that is designed to ensure that we may all have a common understanding of safety terminology and the role we play in an emergency. More than 4,000 students, along with many hundreds more staff, walk through our doors each day. We take our responsibility to ensure their safety seriously. I thank you for your support, and if you would please join me in a moment of silence for the victims and families of Florida and today's matter in Ohio. Thank you. The agenda, as we proceed forward here this evening, for next Tuesday, we have staff recognition. We also will have reports from the various committees. And if you notice, under number 6I, there's an advisement on a trip. This trip was presented to us, and it needs approval prior to the 27th, of which is the voting meeting. You will take public comment on any board action items, and then we'll approve the board meeting minutes from January 16th and the 23rd, and then we'll move on to fiscal items. Mr. Bricker.
Sorry. For tonight, I have the list of bills, the treasurer's report, the budgetary transfers. We also have the MCIU membership service budget for 2018-2019 in the amount of $1,518,580, with Methacton's contribution amount of $74,270. This actually represents a decrease for Methacton of $470 from the prior year. We also have to approve the mileage reimbursement rate of 54.5 cents per mile as set forth by the Internal Revenue Service. This reflects an increase of 1 cent in the rate set forth by the IRS. This will be effective March 1st, 2018. There's also 2 repository sales. The first repository sale is a property located at 5th Street with the parcel number 43-00-04504-00-7 for $500, and approve the repository sale from Montgomery County Tax Bureau on parcel number 43-00-04513-00-7, also for $500. We also have the approval of Indian Valley Appraisers of Solderton for property appraisal services for Audubon Elementary School. The property and the amount of $4,200 for the appraisal.
And if we'll just pause there for a second, then we're going to bring Mr. Fretz up to talk about some of the master plan projects. But if we could, all these items, with the exception of the appraisal services with the exception of the appraisal services, was moved forward by the Finance Committee at this month's meeting. Are there any questions at this point in time from the members of the board on either the list of bills, the treasurer's report, or the budgetary transfers?
Yeah, I just had 2 quick things, Tim. Maybe you could usually we have 1 or 2 of the budgetary transfers. This month we have a significant number. I was wondering if you could just give a little bit more detail for the rest of the board. And real quick, the second one was for the repository tax sales. I know in Finance Committee we had listed the new assessed value of the $500 in the actual line item. Does that need to be done for our voting next week?
We'll start with the budgetary transfers. So the budgetary transfers are mainly made up of 2 different items. The first item being the transfer of the expenses from the $1.9 million that was set aside for contract negotiations. That reflects the changes in the Teamsters contract, and therefore those items are being moved into the correct and appropriate budgets between benefits and salary. The other portion is due to the recoding of the utilities. They were previously recorded in the 400 series. They're now in the 600 series. As per the request of the Finance Committee, those have now been reassigned through the budgetary transfers. With regards to the repository sale, I actually took the same verbiage that was used previously. I can surely put the amounts in if that's what we'd like to have. Previously, the values, I recall off my head, top of my head, were about $4,000 assessed values, moving down to a $500 assessed value, which reflects the sale price.
We can certainly provide that as information, but it's not part of the motion. It's just so. I mean, if the board's comfortable, that we'll leave the motion as it is, and so it is about $4,000 what the previous assessed value was?
Yes.
Okay. We can get that number specifically for all the board members.
No, that's fine. I just wanted clarification in terms of the actual wording of the motion. I know that that's how it was listed for our finance agenda, so I just wanted to make sure that it didn't need to be in there. Thank you.
And then on the IU, just to make sure that everyone understands.
Dr. Zerbe, can I ask one question before we move on to on the appraisal services? Mr. Becker, do you have any information about what we're going to get back? Is it going to be an appraisal of the land without the building, land with the building itself, or kind of what's the expectation? I don't know if you have it now, but if you don't, you maybe could take a look at that as far as...
Do you know the answer?
I do not know the answer at this time. I was just given the appraisal from the solicitor, the value of the cost of that. I'm trying to recall from the conversation that it was an as-is appraisal.
Okay.
And for best use. So final and best use.
So can we just double check with that? We'll make sure we'll get that information.
I just think the more information we have might be better.
That's fair. That's a fair question.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else related to listed bills, treasury reports, budgetary transfers? Okay. Under the MCIU budget, I just think it's important that the board, since we have some new members here and haven't approved the budget, an IU budget before, I think it's important for you to understand that the IU operates a number of different budgets, and the budget that we're actually approving here is not the entire expense that goes to the IU. So, for example, we may buy transportation services from them for special needs students. We may buy physical therapy, audio, other types of special education services from the IU, and those services are under different programs, under different contracts, under different budgets. Okay, this amount is what's considered the statutory requirement. So under the law, when IUs were created to support school districts, they listed a number of services, and I'll just read them off real quick. It's only like 6 or 7 of them, but it's for curriculum development and instructional improvement services, educational planning services, instructional material services, continuing professional education services, pupil personnel services, state and federal liaison services, and management services. Those are the mandated services for which the $74,000 of Methacta's contribution will go to. So I just want to make it clear that it is just a small portion of their larger operation, and you know, we really do like the support that the IU has provided us. It's a good organization providing a lot of different services for the school district, and it's a good partner to have in Montgomery County. So are there any questions on the Montgomery County IU budget? And just for reference point, there's a heading the heading's going to change for item 9D. It's going to say MCIU budget, not MCIU budget contracts for property. So that's already been corrected online, but probably doesn't reflect your paper copy here this evening. Any questions on MCIU budget? If not, the mileage reimbursement is a standard. We normally come in January with this request. We're coming to you in February for approval. Obviously, it does start in March. And then the appraisal services, just for information purposes, at the Property and Transportation Committee meeting this month, I presented a recommendation to the committee. That recommendation was to engage an appraiser to appraise the Audubon property. Having an appraiser bring back a value on that allows us to begin the discussion about what we should or would like to do with that property. At a high level, that presentation included basically 3 choices. The first choice would be to keep the property, and that means that we would need to decide why we're going to keep it, and for how long and for what purpose. We provided information that it's about $144,000 annually to maintain the building in its current state, and we also said that the longer we keep it and not do something with it, the more challenging it will be to either reopen it or do something with it in the future. But so that's option number 1, is to keep the building. Option number 2 would be to sell the building. So in order to determine whether or not our property is worth keeping or worth selling, we need to get the appraiser. And lastly, is we could donate the property. So those are the three high-level discussion items that we had in Property Committee. The Property Committee chose to move the matter forward for the board's approval. Are there any questions at this point? We had our solicitor go out and get the quotes. We got two quotes, one from Indian Valley Appraisers and one from Mastroianni and Associates, and the one that is on the agenda is about $2,000 less for the appraisal, and so that's my recommendation. Are there any questions at this point on appraisal services?
Yeah, I just had a question in terms of the selection between the two companies. I know you mentioned price. Was that the sole driving factor here? Or?
Yeah, I get the response from the solicitor was either of these companies will provide a fine appraisal, and I chose the lesser price.
Sorry, and a follow-up. Have we used this company in the past for anything, or no?
Since I've been here, I have not used either of these companies.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Yeah, Mike, I'll just add to that. We, as I guess as a committee, and me personally, have asked the administration to move forward kind of with some haste in this whole process. I see this as step one towards us actually formally either moving away from Audubon, taking steps towards Arrowhead. The solicitor said that he had experience with both of these organizations and worked with them recently. Thought they could turn this around, get quotes back to us to vote on this month so that we weren't waiting for another month before we move forward. So I think as a committee, I won't speak for everybody, but I think as a committee we were comfortable with the fact that the solicitor worked with these firms before.
Any other questions on that item? If not, we'll go on to the master plan. This evening, Mr. Fretz is here to answer any questions. But as you can see, there's a number, there's 8 items total. All 8 items were reviewed with the Property Committee at the meeting this month. Fadavy was in to outline all the different services and programs. I think, Mr. Fretz, you want to bring attention to 2 matters on the agenda?
Yes, item 5. At the end of item 5, you'll see they show a price of $95,000, $383, and it says it doesn't have anything after it. Needs to say pending solicitor review.
So we made changes. I made changes this evening to that. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then also on item number 7. If you go down to the end, it shows a fee of $17,788. It should read $2,166.
And that was changed on the agenda as well. Okay. But your paper copies may not reflect that. So if you would, Mr. Fretz, just take us through each of these items and what their purpose is, so that we have the rest of the board, while the Property Committee, has heard pretty much in depth of what this is and suggested moving these on, the rest of the board would probably want to know in general what each of these items is for, if you could help us.
Absolutely. Item number 1 was from AEM Architects. That had to do with some sound panels that we had talked about in the gymnasiums at the high school. We looked at that overall. When we had originally looked at it, we were thinking that we were talking about putting a system in there because people can't hear correctly and the audio is poor. And it was found that when we looked at the equipment wasn't, really old, so we felt that we would be able to save it. But as a step 1 to enhance everything there, we felt that we'd have better dollars spent by potentially putting in some sound panels. So step 1 of that, we were directed, if you see, there was a litany of tests associated with it. And this week, we were actually out here to do some testing for the stage at Arcola. Well, we tried to build upon that effort and got into the gymnasium at the high school to take some sound readings there, and that was for $2,000 to do just that work. That was something we needed to do when no one else was around because of the nature of the sounds of the tests. Item number 2, we talked about some roofs. This was Mark Sobek Roof Consulting. This was for the high school roof sections 10, 13, 14, 15, and 17. And their consultant fee for that work is $15,430. That's to approve shop drawings and do a lot of the details in the drawings and the administer the contract for construction of that and do that job. Item number 3, also with the same professional service, would be to perform the inspection while the actual roof was being installed for $17,788. That's on the same proposal, February 5th, from Mark Sobek. Item number 4, we needed to do some asbestos testing, some additional testing of the roof structure. They come out and they core drill, pulled out samples, analyzed the samples to see what kind of results they have, to see if we have any positives or anything out there that we would have to remediate or have to deal with. You know, it's a precautionary measure before we get into full-blown construction, so that if we had something, we'd be able to know it and be able to hit it head on. Item number 4, Item number 5 is Shepherd Restorations Engineering Incorporated. They were affirmed that that's the one where we added the language at the end. It was a $95,000 project, and that's a big construction project. That's something that, while we're sending it to review for the solicitors, it's a typical bid project just by that value, where we're going to have to go out full-blown specs, full-blown bid. That's the restoration work that we'd be looking at, and they would be doing the details, the oversight of that work. Item number 6 is H.T. Lyons. That's to do some various observation of the controls for this room, actually, the high school LGI. Item number 7, again, Mark Sobek. This is for over Arcola, doing the sampling and patching, pulling that sampling and patching out for the roofing. Actually, I know I said the testing. TMS, the company that actually is taking care of the testing. They're doing the roofing work and doing the work with Sobek there as far as pulling the cores, and somebody else actually does the testing. And you'll see that in item number 8, where it says TMS.
Are there any questions from the board on any of the items that are listed here?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to comment. Being that I'm a new member of property, I just wanted to thank Mr. Fratz and Fadavia and the 2 consultants that you had, and Mr. Navarrete, Mr. Earnshaw, Mrs. Hall. You know, this is, and because I had never sat through property, I know you try as a board director to get to as many committee meetings as you possibly can, but it's not always possible. And I really appreciated that meeting because there was a lot of information given, a lot of the people that needed to be there. We asked a ton of questions. We were there till 11, and you know, I really felt like, and the members of the public, that it was a group effort, and we really got a thorough understanding of everything. Because I would always ask Mrs. Larsenis from the prior property committee questions and get all the information, and we would get the reports. But I just felt like that was a very productive meeting. And I do want the public to know, because they might not understand, that we do a lot of this conversation in committee meetings. So although we might not have a ton of questions tonight, it's because we had hours upon hours of questions at the meeting and prior to the meeting. So I just wanted to thank you, because I know, being new in that committee, I had a lot of questions, and I came away with a lot of answers. And I know I appreciate the district, not finally, but, you know, making these investments. And I know as taxpayers, I'm sure people see, and educators, you see all this money being spent on facilities, but it's all so very needed. And I appreciate all the work, and I had no idea how much work, quite frankly, goes into that. So I feel more comfortable because I can sit there, and I don't blame anyone for the questions that they may have, but I have to say, I'm glad I switched committees, because now I won't have to ask an hour of questions this evening.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to point out, thank you very much. As nice comments, and I think it is a great thing, and it opens everybody's eyes to see what's really happening and how we're working hard as an administration and team together with the board to make improvements. The one thing I wanted to do is say thank you, too. You had given me the name of the contractor that worked at North Monco for Votech, and I passed that, reached out to them, got the information, and passed it on to Fidavia, so for, their consideration with our upcoming roof projects.
So just to kind of summarize where we are in this process, Mr. Fretz, maybe you can correct me if I say anything out of order here, but we're in the stages of doing some investigatory work, we're in the stages of doing some planning work, all in preparation for the bids that will likely be in front of you in March. Is that the plan?
March the 7th.
Yeah.
March the 7th, we have our bid opening. We have a pre-bid, I believe, on February the 27th, where we'll sit down with contractors where they may have questions with the documents, questions about the project. We sit down, we take notes, we go through all that for a few hours, then we turn around, create and answer their questions back to the documents so they can work on preparing their bid for the 7th.
So just for everyone's information, once we receive the bids, they'll be tabulated, and we'll be along with Fidavia and the administration, we're making a recommendation, but it's up to the board at some point. So these bids are set up where there's a primary bid and then there's alternate bids, meaning that maybe things are broken down and it gives the board an opportunity to say, yeah, I want to do this, but I don't want to do this at this time. And we're going to have Fidavia here, as well as Mr. Fretz, to come and educate you on all those pieces, so that when we get to a voting meeting, you know exactly what it is that we have before us. Because it's not as simple as saying, okay, here's the overall plan, and it just takes a vote. I think it's important because of the scope and the amount of money that is before us in terms of the potential spend, that we all have the information that you need to get there. And this is all part of getting there, but these are not the bids per se that do the work. All right? I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. Any other questions on any of these matters? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Mark, I'll echo Andrew's thoughts. Thank you. I know that was a marathon meeting. One, because of the timing, I know the previous board asked to have all of these, even these consultants come before them for approval. I know that's a lot of front-end work for you, Fidavia, and everyone else involved to be able to get those in front of the property committee in time to be reviewed, to sit here tonight and review them again, and then go to vote the following month and then get bids back in time. So thank you for that. My second question then is, will we have those bids available for review and discussion in the property committee meeting on the 12th?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Okay.
Typically, after the meeting, we work, diligently getting questions answered, putting stuff together,
So my counsel then, as Andrea said, a lot of the discussion happens in those meetings, and I know we're looking at, 8 people here tonight, but for anybody that's watching at home, that would be the meeting to come to then, if you want to see and have a say, because there'll be a much more in-depth discussion at that meeting than there is, here.
And we'll limit the agenda for that particular item. But just so that we can use till 11 o'clock for that one item. But no, seriously, I mean, all kidding aside, we will do that. And if there's any issue with the timing of that, we can make I'll make a recommendation to the chairperson that we may need to move the meeting if we can't get it lined up. But we have all the thought that we would be able to do that and present the recommendation to the property committee, and then have you weigh in and ask questions and take whatever time you need to do that. And then our immediate step would be to, after the property committee sees that, take it to the full board. We want to make sure that Fidavia is here the night of the work session to go through all matters associated with that. Again, we'll strip down, guest speakers and so forth for that, so we can spend some time on it. But it's a critical first step. I mean, this is the first step in a larger, longer term, multi-year project. So I think it's important that we set, the pace and set the stage for what's not only happen this summer, but what will happen in the future. Other questions, Mike? I think you had your hand up.
Dr. Zerbe, thank you. That's actually exactly kind of one of the first things I was going to ask for is kind of a packaged view that the board will say, property will go through this and vet this through. But I think that's a great idea of, when it gets to us, kind of giving us, this is what you've already approved, this is what it's in relation to, here's the bid for it. Much in the way that AEM kind of proposed it to us, right? Here's the line item. Okay, here's when we went out to bid. This is what you've already approved here. This is what we're asking for you to do tonight. I mean, I think that's a great way to kind of, package it for the board to see it in, an understandable way that we can vote upon it. My only other comment here, and I guess this is kind of a combination of a facilities and a finance thing. For all these things now that we're starting to get into, the nitty-gritty and really approving some of the soft costs, I guess, as we would call them. Will these all be assigned then their own, certain codes that relate back to the exact project, which will roll up through, and then we'll...
Mr. Baker, could you speak to that, please?
Yes, we've already designed all the codes for the 2018 and 2019 projects, and as we go forward, we'll just continue to add the different years as we move on.
Perfect. Great work. Thank you.
Any other questions from this side? If not, Ms. Drummond.
So I have a question about the asbestos testing. So you said that the testing is different, is a separate process from the core sampling. So I'm noticing here that item number 4 is testing at the high school for asbestos-containing material, and number 8 is also testing at Arcola and Skyview. And then furthermore, I see that item number 7 is to get the core sample from Arcola and Skyview, but I'm not seeing the correlated sample, getting the sample from the high school, unless that's part of the larger package that SOBEC's providing with the bid process.
Okay, and I'll have to look into that to be perfectly honest, to look at it, but I know the sampling's taken, so where did it fall in here? But we are pulling cores on the high school roofs that are under construction, I'll say, that we're going to be working on. So anywhere we're working, we're pulling cores and they're all being tested. So just to be clear with that. So I have to look through this exactly to read through it. Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other questions? If not, all right. So we'll get you that. We'll get you that answer for the board prior to the meeting. Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fretz.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda are personnel items. Dr. Sosnovic.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe. For the board's consideration next week, there will be 1 resignation professional, 2 resignation classifieds. We have 3 change of status, 2 uncompensated professional leaves, 2 uncompensated classified, an approval for a medical sabbatical, 2 supplemental contracts, our substitute list, volunteer list. In addition to that, a number of job descriptions, which I believe you wanted to make a note.
Yeah, so I just want to bring attention to the board and the public. Under strategic objective number 4, under focus area 4, of this district strategic plan, we basically said to establish and implement a system of review, updating, and board approval of all employee job descriptions in an effort to establish minimum qualifications, conduct performance management, communicate performance expectations, and analyze essential functions. So this is actually the kind of like the first, not necessarily the first step, but the first step involving the board along this path. And as with any process, it wasn't the practice of here at Methacton for the district to approve job descriptions. Once I arrived and we created new positions, we did bring them before the board and we had them approved, and they were documented up in the right-hand corner about when the board approval date of that was. I think it's, in my opinion and my experience, it's very important that the board, who actually does the hiring of all positions, you approve. I give you recommendations on who ought to be hired, but you essentially do the hiring. It's important that you also participate in the job description process, so that we make sure that we're providing the guidance for the administration and my office specifically on what to bring forward for those recommendations. So with that said, it's also important to know that our job descriptions are reviewed regularly, and that they are, we know how outdated they are or aren't. They'll eventually be dated. Once they're approved, the next day they're already dated. They're dated by a day. I mean, this isn't a microchip, but it's certainly, we're not dealing with Moore's Law, but we're dealing with something more along the lines of, creating a structure and a process that allows us to stay as current on this as possible. So with that said, one of the things that we plan on doing is we have job descriptions here, and we'll talk about them in a second. I'll turn it over to Dr. Sosnovic for that. But I want you to know that what we plan to do was start with the administration, and then over the next year or two, bring different groups based on how we can best categorize them so that we don't, overburden the board with, all the number of job descriptions to read. But through this process and through the establishment of we'll call it a template, the things to strategically include in these job descriptions, we can then move forward with bringing the rest of the administration this year, which was, I think, part of our original internal goal, and then move forward with other groups in the preceding school year. But with that said, what we plan to do is, in order to manage this, I've tasked Dr. Sosnovic with preparing an administrative guideline, and in that guideline, we will review job descriptions thereabout every 4 years with an administrative review, and we'll also stamp the review of that date. If changes are needed when a position becomes vacant, we would bring those changes before the board for approval, and within that 4-year cycle, we can use administration, groups like administration, teachers, Teamsters, sport professionals, to bring that cycle before the board. Essentially, starting with the administration, we think that over the next several months we'll be able to bring all the administrative job descriptions forward for your approval. So this evening, Dr. Sosnovic, I think you have those job descriptions. You want to talk about our internal process?
Sure. I wanted to share with the board that these represent the new template we plan to utilize for all future job descriptions in support of that administrative procedure that Dr. Zerbe just outlined that I'll be working on formalizing here for the district. We reached out to the IU, other districts, as well as debated long and hard at a cabinet level as to what specific elements should be included in that template. We believe it provides us with a consistent and standardized template that can be applied for any position in the district. Additionally, to highlight, the qualifications section was specifically designed in a manner to establish a minimum baseline candidates must meet that is consistent with regulations and laws set forth by the Pennsylvania Department of Education for any individual holding that position, while simultaneously providing the district the greatest ability to evaluate all potential candidates through the screening processes we have internally. It's important to recognize this is the start of a process and a procedure, as Dr. Zerbe outlined, excuse me, in support of the strategic plan, and a great step forward to solidifying our hiring practices. So with that said, for your approval tonight, you have 8 cabinet level positions for, not approval for tonight, approval for next week, 8 cabinet level positions.
So as we would at any work session, this is a new process. We're looking for your feedback. If there are any comments or questions or recommendations, we'll be glad to take them. Paul?
Yeah, thank you for this. Two questions. The first one is specific towards safety. We have that as part of a existing description, and also it was part of the strategic plan as an initiative. So my concern is that this is still floating out there from a responsibility perspective.
Well, so what you're referring to is there's a position called Director of Technology, Child Accounting and Safety, which was held by Dr. Sosnovic, and in the interim status where he's working as the interim Director of Human Personnel or Human Services and Labor Relations, he also is continuing with his role with safety, and I think that as part of the revised job description, we felt that adding that into the HR role, because we deal with a lot of other training and other personnel matters, that would be the best spot, regardless of whether Dr. Sosnovic was the person running the Department of Human Resources and Labor Management, or if it was someone else.
So Dave, the only issue with this, and I think Scott Dorn pointed this out before, is that you want the positions to be independent of your existing staff. So, we're using Troy because he has that experience and he can fill that role. And I'm not sure, I don't really actually see it in the job description of Director of Labor Relations and Human Resources. I don't care if it's in the title or not. I just want to know who's responsible for it. And I'm a little concerned on that it's sort of more reacting to what we have as opposed to what we need.
Yeah, I just mentioned that while Troy was in the position of Director of Technology, Child Accounting, and Safety, and now he's in the interim role. So I just want to be clear that he is fulfilling the duties of the safety even today. So he's taking the interim role of HR, and he is still doing the safety stuff. He is not doing the child accounting or the technology. So no balls have been dropped related to safety. So I want to make that clear. That's important, first of all. Now, going forward, and when we take a look at where safety should be from a perspective, safety was probably given to Troy in his role because of his interest in that particular area, and we needed to have someone spearhead that area. With what we have outlined in the HR job description now is that the HR office, regardless of whether it's Dr. Sosnovic or someone else, if we look at all the other director level positions and who should be accountable to that, it doesn't make sense to have it in the business office. It doesn't make sense to have it in the curriculum office. And so where we deal with other safety-related matters and training for staff and compliance matters is in the Office of Human Resources. And it was our decision as part of the job description that we provided an update to include it in there, regardless of whether Dr. Sosnovic is in that position or not. And if someone sees that we should do it otherwise, or should be a different position, we certainly can take that into consideration. That's been our recommendation.
I'm sorry. No, I guess I understand what you're saying. You're saying it belongs in a Director of Labor, no matter who it is, and it is. I guess I'm struggling to find it.
It's item 15 and 16. They were the items taken from the previous Director of Technology, Child Accounting, and Safety and moved over. So it is specifically work collaboratively with local and state law enforcement agencies to ensure district is meeting required safety mandates, work collaboratively with principals for purposes of maintaining emergency management plans. Those were the two items that spoke directly to safety in the previous job description.
Okay. And I'm sorry, Andrea, and do we feel that those are enough to describe what is needed for the school district?
Absolutely. If I showed you what the emergency management plan looked like, you would say yes. It's our all-encompassing district-wide approach to safety.
Okay. And then the second independent no segue question here is that we have goals, you have competencies, and it's not immediate, but I would sort of like to see how the performance review is used as a basis. What type of performance reviews are being used in the administration, and as we go down and through the other areas of the organization, how you're using this as your reference point to evaluate where you have gaps and improvement possibilities. Thanks.
Wanted to piggyback on what Paul asked, because that was my question, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I'm trying to understand kind of what you said. So how I look at it is we don't have an assistant superintendent. So Dr. Katona might take some roles, and Mr. Bricker might take some of those roles. So what you're saying is in our cabinet, that Director of Labor, whatever the exact title is, that's 15 and 16, that's where that's going. That's kind of how I look at it. Am I wrong in looking at it like that, or is that you kind of spread it among the cabinet kind of thing?
That's what recommending it be, based on the existing, based on the job description that we put forward for you.
Okay. And then I had, is this the time for nitty-gritty questions, or is this the time to comment on the whole process?
Whatever you want to talk about, because
Okay.
I think it's important for us. We're looking for feedback. We want to make sure that, if there's things we can do between now and within a day or two to make some changes if need be.
Okay.
But this is the start of a new process, and
I think this is a good place to start with the cabinet. And my nitty-gritty question was, I haven't had a chance to go through every single one with a fine-tooth comb, but when I look at the first one, which I want to get the correct title, Director of School and Community Information, unless I'm reading it wrong, it doesn't look like that person supervises anybody, because in the business office one, there's supervision roles, and I believe that person does supervise somebody, so I don't know.
yes, in terms of a secretary, they do supervise a secretary.
Ooh, and
It's the coordinator of school and community information. Yeah.
Okay, so, and I don't know what everyone's exact title is, but like, for example, the person who's in charge of community ed, is that I'm assuming this person is Angela Lynch?
Yes.
Okay, so, and she supervises Kathy Keffer, correct? And is that, so that's, it doesn't look like in the description that she does, but maybe I'm not reading it correctly. Because in Mr. Bricker's description, it looks like he's in charge of a certain amount of people. Does that make any sense? Am I missing something?
It does make sense. We can certainly make note of that, and I'll have to review. I understand what you're asking, and I think that's a fair question. I just need to look at
I got you.
the
So
items.
there's my comment, just to look at that role and who that person supervises.
Okay. Do you have any other comments on that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just asked Mike if I could ask one more question. Sorry. So we go in order. On the Director of Labor Relations and Human Resources, it says member MAO. Is that correct?
That's correct. That is correct. That position was and currently is in my capacity as that interim director prior to Dr. Zerbe getting his. I believe he was a member of Mayo actually when he was assistant to superintendent as well, and that was just a stipend. So his benefit package was as part of the Methacton administration organization.
Dr. Harney, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I know where you're going with this. So let me just explain that. So it's important that the board knows that we had legal counsel making a recommendation at one point that the human resources position is at times, and one hand, one solicitor is suggesting that they should not be a member of an Act 93 group, and we have another's. We've had a practice where we've had the HR director being a member of the Act 93 group. In all fairness, what I need to do is I need to make a few calls, and I want to be able to communicate respectfully to the members of the board about what we can and can't do, so that A, we're working within the structure of the law, and B, we determine what the advantages and disadvantages are for going either way if we have an option either way. Does that sound like a fair plan? Because I think I do owe that to the board. Just give me a second to write something down. And just so I'm clear, in case those of you who are not familiar with what I'm talking about, so it's either they're a member of the Act 93 group or they're an individual contracted person. So right now, in the district administration, there are 2 contracted people: the business office director of business services and the superintendent. So they have individual contracts, whereas the directors generally have or fall under the Act 93 agreement. Okay, and where they do what's called a meet and discuss on a regular basis. Could be every 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it may be, and they meet with the board and talk about salary, benefits, and things. But it's not the same as a negotiation process that we've undertaken with labor unions, where we have the MESPA group, the Teamsters, and the teachers. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
Just to follow up on that, if we don't have a resolution on that by next week, then can we just push that description off to the following month?
We certainly can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a couple quick things. First, I want to say thank you to Dr. Sisnovic and Dr. Zerbe. This is a great example of putting strategic plan into practice and doing something that we have there. I think the template looks great. I've actually looked at some of the other school districts, and I actually think ours looks a lot cleaner. So I want to say nice job with the template there. My one comment would be, and Dr. Zerbe, I did send a message to you about this, and I'll keep this brief, is I know Dr. Sisnovic, you mentioned in the qualifications part that we kind of kept this to the bare, I don't want to misquote you, but the bare minimum according to state requirements to hold that position or something thereabout. I would push for a much more detailed qualification here, being that these are director level positions. I kind of shoot a little bit higher here, especially for, just some of them really stick out for you, where it's the Angela's job. Basically I could apply for it because it just has a bachelor's degree. I don't think anyone would want to see me take over Mrs. Lynch's job. But along those same lines, it's the same thing. I mean, the Finance Committee went through a lengthy process, I will say, of going through the Director of Business Services job description, identifying the exact qualifications and type things that we wanted to look for in a candidate that would succeed in this district. And I would just ask that, we kind of look over each one of these and kind of make sure that, it just doesn't say a bachelor's degree, maybe for IT, bachelor's degree in IT, commensurate experience of 5 or plus years. And if you do look at a lot of the other school districts, that language is in there. And I just think if you're going to have a job description and then maybe a job advertisement at some point, that I think that they should really try to match up. And I think that there's a disconnect between what our job description shows and then a job advertisement that we may have in the future. If there's a discrepancy, I think that that could leave us kind of in an area of limbo. And just my final comment here was, and this is just a small thing like Andrea said, the physical demands and lifting requirements, was this taken specifically from a law, or I just want to make sure the wording here just seems kind of odd, but I'm assuming
it's odd.
So when we were looking at other job description templates and to determine what to incorporate, this particular language is what the PSBA template suggests. Their prior job description had a matrix of various things, check boxes and everything else that was maybe too granular in nature as it's being suggested to me at this point in time. So we basically inherited and decided to use the PSBA recommended language.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's much better than that 2-page matrix that we had of check boxes. So I just want to make sure that this language was a recommendation from someone. So again, thank you very much for both your work on this.
Thanks for your comments. And I think Dr. Sisnovic, maybe you can, we got to kind of chime in here because we need to provide, we're trying to get this in line with potential approval for next week. And I guess it's important that from what Mr. Ryan had mentioned about the different qualifications, we took an approach where we were trying to say what was legally required, and you heard Dr. Sisnovic talk about that, but we also have comments over here from Mr. Ryan. We want to make sure that And we've actually debated the same thing in-house, because we had in the older, we'll say the older job descriptions, they had things like that in there, and some said 5 years, some said 10 years, some said 7 years. There was no rhyme or reason, and we actually created drafts that included those, and then eventually, in order to get some consistency and create a template that allows us to move forward, that's the result of what you have. So I just want to make sure that we're on the right page going through this. So I don't know if there's any other comments from the board members about what we're talking about here. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, we have, like Dr. Zerbe said, we had these conversations, and we have some of that language put in there. It's important for the board to recognize our process. So whereby you add specific requirements and qualifications during that screening process, you automatically omit whoever doesn't meet that, and then we go through it. Our approach now is that we meet the state minimum requirements, and then through our screening process, we always, our goal is to hire the best individual, most qualified, most educated, and best for our district. So, during our screening process of ranking and determining the most appropriate individual at the time of need of that office is when a lot of those qualifications that you're so mentioning exist. One could argue that an individual with 4 years of highly qualified experience with a diverse skill set in education is much more qualified with somebody who worked a job for 7 years and doesn't have that level of skill set or education. So we just need to caution, just think through it from a board perspective. If that is your approach, then I would suggest that you also add in there a language that would suggest something like, to say the minimum qualification is 5 years of experience, but that to be preferred. That way you have the option as a board to always elect or select another candidate that might be really good for the district, but might not necessarily meet those paper screening requirements as we discussed. I know that in the Director of Business Services, to speak to what Mike and the previous board members and their hard work, they had a line in there that said alternatives to above qualifications as the board may find acceptable in there, and that was kind of like that caveat as well. So, if it's the board's desire for us to add some language relative to, qualification, experience, or, some of these, we'll call these soft skills when you talk about, communication skills or strong analytical problem-solving skills, we could do that. But with that said, we always have an eye for making sure people have those, and if it's going to have something numerical, like, number of years, you add a caveat to it so we don't pigeonhole ourselves as a district in not selecting a really qualified candidate. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you. I agree with putting in language like preferred and things like that, but I do find the qualifications lacking in these job descriptions, and would like to see them just a little more specified, because I just pulled the Labor Relations and Human Resources and the Director of Facilities, just because I was able to easily find comparable job descriptions and job postings of those positions, and where we say HR, certificate preferred, someone else is saying bachelor's in HR, public administration, business or related area, HR certificates or benefit administration certificate preferred. We're saying master's degree, and they're saying master's in educational management, administration, HR, so you get the idea there. It's just, I'm seeing a lot more specific and detailed job descriptions from other school districts. And Director of Facilities, I'm seeing, we say bachelor's, someone else is saying bachelor's or master's in engineering, civil, mechanical, or electrical engineering preferred, MBA or business minor strongly preferred, knowledge of ADA, OSHA, like things like that. That's the kind of things I would like to see in our qualifications as going forward, because I think that will inform the kind of advertising that we do. And I agree with saying preferred is always good to, so that you can make sure you're capturing people with a different breadth of experience. But I would like to see a lot more detail in these.
Sure, and I just want to mention with the whole, we'll call it the caveat language that I was suggesting, and you mentioned preferred. It's important to have that in there too, because again, you want to grow internal capacities. So if you have a teacher that's aspiring to have a leadership position within this organization, they're not going to come with those minimum qualifications. So you don't want to exclude your already pre-existing staff out of the gate by using hard-nosed language. But I heard what you said, Ms. Drummond, and some of the other comments from the board, and we'll make sure that we reflect these in the language or the job descriptions for your approval next week.
Well, let's make sure that I'm trying to get direction from the board. Is there any other thoughts on that? I mean, is that the direction that we should go down?
Yeah, I'll pipe in if you're looking for direction. I completely agree with everything that Liz and Mike said. I would like to see them beefed up and put that language in there. This is what we desire, because I think Troy hit it on the head too. We don't want to disqualify any internal candidates and want to do anything else. But I think we also need to, when we're going to put these out there and then put them forth for the public to see, for other candidates to see, that we're looking for quality individuals, not just a bachelor's degree.
The only thing I wanted to just go back to is the safety, just because it's so prominent right now. I do feel like we should have labor relations, safety, and HR. But just because it's saying such important components about the safety, I just feel like that title should have safety in there, because I don't even know who's in charge of the SROs for the school. I don't know who that falls under. I want to look, if a parent wants to see who is in charge of safety, everyone, all administration, everyone will know, just looking at the title, safety, this is who it is. It's huge right now. It's just
certainly,
unfortunate.
I mean, that was, we certainly recognize that. But just for your information, the SROs report directly to the high school principal or to the Arcola principal. So those are their two main points of contact. And when needed, Dr. Ziznovic in his capacity.
Right.
But they're primarily, oversight is from those two principals.
Yeah, but I think then if something occurs, right, just
that
person, just to have safety in that title is, to me, important.
Okay, so so we have that as a potential item, but I want to go. Let's, if we could, just stay on the topic of qualifications for right now, and then we'll go back to safety in a second. Okay.
No, I think there should be some more details added to qualifications, and use of the preferred language is fine. I think that's also going to help you in screening out and cutting down the number of resumes you might get for an opening, and help you with that screening process just by having that language in there.
That's pretty much, yeah, everybody good with that? So we'll move in that direction. So then on Jen's suggestion about safety, and maybe that was more in line with what Paul was trying to get to earlier, so that it's not, it's obvious. Does anybody have anything to add to that? Is that a good suggestion, or should it be something different?
I guess one question I thought of here is, have you taken a look at the structure in other districts of comparable size? I mean, is it a standalone position in other districts? Is it under HR, or is it, directly reporting to superintendent, or where does that fall?
Yeah, it's a mix. So there are districts that definitely have their own, we'll call them coordinator of safety. There are districts that it falls underneath a district level administrator in terms of oversight of district emergency management plans from a district-wide approach. It just so happens after we looked at all the job responsibilities that goes into the cabinet, and me living the role and knowing what it was about and being able to contribute to that conversation, I felt it was something that whoever sits in this seat would be able to do effectively, in conjunction with the human relations or human resources, labor relations position, and would not be to the detriment of the program.
And just for reference, we did about 4 years ago, we had a position that was another administrative position, and it was a combination of wellness, safety, and I think there was a third part of it.
They did a lot with community education.
Yeah, so there was an administrative position, but with that person leaving, we redistributed that workload and we eliminated the administrative position as such.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be that safety by itself falls into so many of these different offices, right? I mean, Mr. Fretz has certainly a huge responsibility where that goes. Troy is responsible then for training our administrators and our staff, our teachers, everybody. Some of it falls under Dr. Angstad and Pupil Services as far as how we're tracking our own kids as they move from school to school, where there might be issues. I don't know that, I don't feel very strongly one way or the other about including in the title, so I'll go along with whatever the rest of the board wants to do. But I do think we need to recognize that it doesn't just fall under Troy. There's a much broader scope to this, and it may be something maybe we should discuss offline as to maybe how we want to deal with that as a board. Should we have a separate committee for it? Maybe an ad hoc committee, so that the board has some oversight of the process from a safety perspective.
So if I may, Mr. Navarrete, one important transition that took place from when the individual held it in the position that Dr. Zerbe referenced before was that it was very centralized. And everything fell underneath that one individual. So when I assumed the role, we took the approach that everybody has a hand in safety. It's very similar to what you just mentioned. And so we decentralized it from central administration and, held on to the responsibilities of the coordination, vertical and horizontal alignment of our safety emergency management plans, our Limerick emergency drill, our SRO programs and stuff like that. But as Dr. Zerbe also mentioned, we then, gave the responsibility to, other individuals, for example, building principals leading the ERT meetings and taking more of an active role in safety so that, everybody can have a greater stake in it. And that's why, again, when we recommend this move and ability to keep it at this level shared with the HR individual, it's because of changes we've made to the structure and how we approach.
Sorry. Can I just say one thing? I'm absolutely okay with that. Then maybe what we need to do is strengthen the language then that's in the job description to say that central management of all those safety functions. Then I think you put it perfectly, right? The horizontals and the verticals. Maybe that's not how you want to describe it in the job description, but some kind of language to that effect. In other words, where safety is concerned, then Mr. Fretz's role and Dr. Angstad's roles are, supplementary.
I would, agree with Mr. Navarrete on that because, I understand what Ms. Cancro is saying about parents need to know, but just like every chain of command, if I had a problem with standardized testing and I went to the teacher and the teacher's like, oh, you need to go to the principal about that. And then the principal's like, oh, that's above me. You need to go to Dr. Katona. Like, I do think there's a, if in your job description, I know by Dr. Katona's job description that if I have a real problem with anything to do with standardized testing and I've gone through all the other channels, I'm going to her. Whereas if it's in that job description, if I had a true safety concern and I went to the principal because I was concerned, and the principal's like, ooh, that's a really good point, but you know what, that's above me, she would send me, in this case, based on our conversation, to you. So I think we sometimes have to be careful. I mean, although we are here for the community, and we are here for parents, and we are here for students, I don't like doing something just so a parent knows. A parent should know. I think we have enough resources that a parent should know. I mean, I can't speak for every district like Dr. Cisnovic said. There is a mix. I mean, I'm sure there's a mix, but I think this is bringing up at a good time because we knew we needed to do this. It was part of our strategic plan, but it's kind of where I would say. And then I won't because it's off the topic. We got to stick to the topic.
So any other thoughts on adding safety to the title? We've gotten some input. I'm going to take it back to Cabinet as well. If we think that is justifiable based on our comments and our thoughts, we'll make a recommendation. Otherwise, at this point, we've gotten some of the other job qualifications. Is there anything else related to job descriptions that we want to talk about in this process and or the format that you would like to bring to our attention?
I will just say that in what I said earlier about who supervises who, when I read through some more, it's not that you need to have specific numbers in here because things change and things might be fluid, and it does look like for example, I went through Dr. Katona's, and it's similar to what Angela Lynch has said about supervising, and it's not about who to go to, but if I'm not sure in this job description, if something went wrong with something, who's responsible? And I don't mean it like a finger pointing, but as, for example, in a job description, I don't manage adults. That's why I am a teacher, and I don't want to be an administrator because I don't manage adults well. I prefer the under 18 crowd, and it's not always clear to me that some of these individuals are supervising and managing adults, if that's, yeah.
Take that into consideration and see if there's a proper place to identify that. Okay. Any other comments?
I would just say if that potential in the job is there to be in a supervisory role, just put it in there.
Any other comments? Thank you very much for the discussion. We'll take these items under advisement, and it'll be our goal over the next day or two to try to make these adjustments and try to get them into your advance. I know it's a lot of reading, but we do appreciate the time that you're taking on helping us through this process, because I think this first go around will be the thing that allow us to kind of just move the rest of the pieces forward. But it's getting these things ironed out that's important. Next on the agenda, we have we're on to curriculum and programs. Dr.
Wait, I didn't. Sorry, I had a couple questions about HR. We went to the job descriptions. Okay. Sorry. I have two. First was about the retirement. I don't even know the exact parameters on my own contract because I'm not quite near retirement. But I feel like it's like 60 days and blah, blah, blah. And I feel like a lot of times, even if they're in the middle of the year, they're at the end of a marking period, but I could be wrong. So I was just curious. This seems like an unusual date to me.
Yes. Mr. Hall has been out on leave for a number of weeks now. And so this is a decision that he's decided to move forward with. And we've had this LTS in place for the greater part of this school year.
Thank you. And then my other question is, we've approved a couple sabbaticals throughout the last 2 years, some of the previous board members, but this might be the first sabbatical that the new board members are approving. Could you just explain what a sabbatical is? Because it's not all districts offer that, so I think it's an important mention.
Sure. So you could have a sabbatical for two reasons. One for professional development, and also the other for health restoration. There are some obligations to the employee back to the school district after the sabbatical is up. They do have to work in service for the period of the next school year. So that, for purposes of that sabbatical, they do have to apply, and it does have to be approved by the board. And there is specific contract language in the collective bargaining agreement, specifically for this individual, for MEA, that spells out the rights of that sabbatical in concert with school code.
So just to give you a little bit more context around that, if I could just add to it. So when the teacher goes on a sabbatical, they get half pay during that period of time. And I think that's important for the members of the board to understand. So that half pay has a requirement where they, as Dr. Sosnovic was saying, they need to come back and fulfill at a very minimum. So if they do a half-year sabbatical, they get half their pay during that half that period of time, then they need to come back and, come back and complete that same amount of service in order to be considered whole in the whole sabbatical process. And I think they're eligible to take a sabbatical after 10 years of service. 7?
Every 7 years.
Every 7 years. Any other questions on that? Thank you very much. Other questions on the personnel items? If not, we'll move on to curriculum. Dr. Katona, is there any comments for the board this evening?
No, nothing moving forward this month.
I have a quick question I could have misunderstood. Were we going to bring forward job descriptions or not yet? Did we hold off on that?
I will be bringing them to the Ed Committee in March.
Okay.
And then we'll bring them.
Okay, I did misunderstand. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think when we had the discussion in Education Committee, we said we were going to we got approval from the Ed Committee to bring job descriptions forward for the consideration of teacher on assignments at the secondary level, not necessarily coming to the board at this point in time, because I think there's more discussion needed. Make sure that we're in line.
Sounds good.
Any other questions for Dr. Katona? If not, we'll move on to policy. As you can see, there are items for first reading as a result of the most recent policy committee meeting. So there are 8 items listed there. And for your approval next week are the 10 items listed under second reading. Are there any questions on any of those items? Yes.
Just working down the list, 201, admission of students. Let me say thank you to the policy committee for clarifying exactly when we are going to admit students for kindergarten. Second question I have, 251 was not attached. Does that mean that there's no changes for that?
I apologize. There are changes to 251.
Okay.
So it's not attached on the agenda?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. I'll fix that, and we'll have that done by tomorrow morning.
That works. 819, suicide awareness, prevention, and response. I'll say that it's not an easy topic to discuss, but I'm thrilled to see that the thoughtful way in which it was approached in the policy and moving away from a policy that was based on adherence to legal standards to something that really was addressing the whole child, as we talk about in our strategic plan. Since I wasn't I know this has been a long process for this particular policy, and maybe Mary, you can talk to it, or Dr. Zerbe. What was the process? Who did we consult with in developing, the language that's in there? And I just want to make, because there are specific prescriptions, I guess, in there as to how we're going to handle things. I just want to know that, it wasn't Mrs. Hall talking about it.
This is actually a carryover from when I first took the position. This was carefully reviewed by legal as well as Dr. Angstadt, and she provided a lot of the insight as to directives that we are to follow.
And I think in prior to the new board members coming on, there was a lot of discussion from the previous committee based on some national policies, and we tried to, with a lot of discussion and sharing them with Dr. Angstadt, making sure that, the things that we were trying to do here at Methacton were consistent across the state, as well as in line with some of the thinking on a national level. So there was quite a bit of time involved in this, and I appreciate everybody that was involved. I know Ms. Hall and the rest of the committee, their due diligence in reviewing this. Any other comments on policies? Yes.
I just have a feedback for word choice in 907 Megan's Law to replace the word dangerousness just with the word danger. So it would read, to determine those needing to be notified according to the offender's danger to the community.
I'll take that under advisement, but I'm told that this is actually coming right out of the law. So if
Dangerousness sounds
I know what I agree. I know what it sounds like. It sounds like somebody made a mistake. But I'll double check with the solicitor to make sure that this is directly out of the law. If it is, it's my recommendation to the board that we keep it as the law so dictates. But if it's not and it's just a poor choice of words, we'll take your recommendation. Okay. Anyone else? Any other comments? Okay.
Last one, I promise. On 913, commercialism in schools, under the guidelines, there was the sentence that was struck said, proposed sponsorship/partnership involvement must be reviewed by the board or a committee of the board for approval, and the rest of the paragraph stayed the same. If the economic benefit to the district more than $10,000, agreement must be set forth in a written agreement approved by the school board at a public meeting. I guess my question is, why was that struck? Why are we taking board approval away? And what, I mean, I guess, what are you envisioning? What contract would be approved? In other words, it was under $10,000. I'm just trying.
I think we had a lot of discussion about that. I'm sorry?
It was like the playbills for the theater.
Yes, so for example, a lot of discussion was for any agreement or any commercialism in school, we'd have to bring every ad that would come either for the basketball booklet that we do or for the play or for any other matter. And so what we try to do is make this as efficient and effective as possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Other items you'll see listed under gifts and donations. We have 8 items. We've accepted gift of children's books from Sharon Eckhart to support the Worcester Elementary Reading Program, valued at $120. Accept the gift of percussion kit from Christine Leone to be used in the music department at Skyview Upper Elementary School, a value of $150. Accept a gift of a Meade reflector, 4500 telescope with tripod from Allison Reichwein to be used in the Malin Planetarium. Gift is $250. Accept a gift of Bersher flute from Michelle Vitelli to be used in the instrument department at Eagleville, value of $50. Accept a gift of $150 from Lower Providence Optimist Club to be used for the Woodland Elementary Backpack Program. Accept a gift of $1,010.60 from Kelly Maloney, funds for the Skyview Music Department fundraiser, a value, again, of, change some of this wording. Accept a gift of $500 from Merck Give Back Employee Giving Program. You see that there's 2 of them listed here. It's actually a gift of $1,000. They wanted it listed twice as per their request. We're honoring that. Under trips, you see that there's a number of trips listed here, 8 in total. You'll see that the 5th grade outdoor education program takes up a majority of that. That's a program that's run annually here in Methacton. It is an overnight trip, and all the costs are funded by parents and by Home and School and other fundraising matters. In addition to the outdoor education, we have approved a trip for academic decathlon state championship in Clarion, PA, March 8th through the 10th. Cost of the district $138 for 1 substitute. We also have approved a trip for the Methacton High School schoolgirls lacrosse team to attend Damascus, Maryland on March 23rd to the 25th at no cost to the district. And then under item 14, there's dates for board members' calendars, old business, new business, and then courtesy of the floor. So are there any questions on any of the gifts or any of the trips? Yeah.
Actually, just a question for the dates for board members' calendars. Could I request that your secretary add all the committee meetings to our calendars? In the past, that's been sent out so that we have it listed on our Methacton calendars, and that's one thing that we don't have yet. Thank you.
I just want to make sure I clarify what you just said. I just want to get it right. So you're saying to have the committee meetings added to the calendar like through an Outlook invite? Got it. Yep, got it.
And I had 3 HR questions. There was so much going on with HR. So Troy, sorry, one more. I saw a couple vacancies for the spring coaches, and I know we don't know for sure, but are we worried about any of those vacancies?
No, Dr. Spiewak is working toward filling those vacancies, and so as soon as he identifies them, in typical fashion, we typically have a vacancy and/or 2, every year when we bring the list forward, and we fill them and then bring them to a future meeting for your approval. We're not currently worried at this time.
Okay, so I'm going to turn the meeting over to you.
Okay, we're on number 15, old business. Is there any old business?
Yeah, I don't know where to put this. I just wanted to ask Dr. Zerbe on his opening comments related to the school calendar. That I understand the reason that we're waiting until March. But one of the surprising things to me through the labor negotiation was the Act 80 days, and I know that we asked for more Act 80 days this year because of the Roll Out of Wonders program. Where do we have the discussion about the actual physical number of instructional days? Should we have that here? Should we provide some feedback to you directly? Should it go through the Education Committee? Because the number of instructional days comparatively to some school districts obviously is not at the same amount. And it's something that I know specifically this year why we had more, but it seems like this has been going on for several years. I don't know how far back. And it's just something I think that we need to wrestle as a board of the number of days we want to have as instructional time, and then what that means to the physical calendar and the front end or the middle end, the middle days, the snow days, all those type of conversations I think we need to have as a board.
Yeah, that's a fair question, and I think that probably became more apparent as we had to address the Act 80 days as part of the labor stoppage. So I think maybe the best place to do that would be in an Education Committee meeting. That way, I think we can certainly establish the rationale for why we have so many days. We know that by contract we have different contracts with different labor groups to provide different services. Obviously, teachers being the most important in terms of the mission of the district. So if we take a look at under the status quo that we're in right now, there's so many days that they're scheduled to work, and so many days that they'll schedule to work with students. And then from there, it is up to the administration and the approval of a calendar by the board on an annual basis to determine how many instructional days we'll have. So like this current school year, we probably asked for more, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but how many more? But we asked for more Act 80 days for a number of reasons, the Wonders curriculum being one of them. But again, that is, I think, is a good discussion for the Education Committee. So if you'd like, would you like us to add that with the chair? Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. No, I just want to make sure. So we'll add that. So Dr. Catone will add that to this coming month's meeting, because it might actually be timely, Mr. Winters, because if we're bringing the calendar forward, it would be appropriate to have it this month in March.
And one other, again, no segue. When you talked about the unfortunate incidents in the last week or so, and your statement, it provides a lot of good information about what we're doing from the school district. And I just put it out there. One of the concerns I have is as we had our offer for the MEA out there in a public setting, the discussion around the team time, the team approach at the Arcola has been misinterpreted by much of the public of what the purpose of some of those negotiation activities were. So I would like it, just putting it out, and maybe it's not the right forum, but that the school district is still fully committed to the team approach at Arcola, at least I am, in some form. And the element of what that purpose of that is and what the importance of those years and the ARCOLA years in the development of the child, the whole child. There is no backing away from that from the district. And I don't want actually to be misinterpreted through social media or something about, oh, well, they're trying to get rid of or whatever around this subject. So that's only one man's opinion, but I'm sort of anticipating a social media firestorm around, oh, okay, they say that, but they're doing X instead. So probably more of a conversation you and I should have had, but I think we really need to be in front of it, to be honest.
Well, if I could just comment on that, I think it's I'll just say, for lack of identifying anyone, the general public might not necessarily understand or be able to interpret the language in both of the board's final and best offer and the teacher's final and best offer, and while it's easier to do the math and find about salaries and benefits and things of that nature, understanding, scheduling, changes is probably not very apparent unless you're in the educational market space and been dealing with that. And as the board members, you've become very familiar with that because it's something we deal with. I think it's important. We can certainly have any conversation you need about that particular matter. I think it's probably clear, at least in my opinion, that the board had put a final and best offer that included teaming on the table. So I mean that's really clear, and so that's there. That shows that's the board's commitment to having teaming continue to occur. And it's my understanding that the associations, and I don't know the wording, but I imagine they didn't ask for any changes. But while there's some changes from the board side, certainly doesn't by any means eliminate teaming at all. It modifies it a bit to help make it appropriate to address the needs of the students at that level, at the same time making it efficient for us to manage. And I think that's that was the overall intent of the language. So if there's misinterpretation of it at this point, certainly the thought, if in fact there is an agreement that's reached, the thought was always that regardless of when that agreement would occur, that the administration would sit down with the teachers at that level, as well as invite other members of the public to evaluate how to best leverage the use of whatever that structure is, whatever is approved, for the benefit of our student body. And I think that's what we will do if in fact we have an agreement that's workable, that we can agree to. Does that, I mean,
No,
there's more to the conversation.
No,
because
I agree with everything you said.
Maybe something on social media that I haven't or have been informed of. I don't sit there and monitor. I have people that do that for me, and they tell me whether or not I should address something.
I certainly don't do it either, but I just want to say maybe you could add something in your letter that goes out tomorrow to the community that says that the Acton School District has been committed and continues to be, that was my point here, that we have committed and have continued to commit to the team approach in the middle school. But that, again, that's only one person's opinion, so.
And I'll just piggyback. Do you have moral business? Are you sure? I am. Because I actually want to piggyback on two of yours, because it's good. First, I'll start backwards. The 8th grade, just so we don't all get to talk, because we're not supposed to, among more than us, but I think you brought up a good point, and Dr. Katona knows I had asked for education at some point this spring for Ms. Mangano to come to the Education Committee and kind of just give us an update on our COLA. And what I can just do is, not that it doesn't solve your question, but when she does, she could discuss the teaming approach, and I could include it in my minutes. That doesn't help exactly what you're saying, but I did ask, since she's now in her second year, not full year, for her to kind of come and give us just an overview of Arcola at an education meeting that I could share. So I think that's a good point for her to bring up. And then I just wanted to piggyback on Paul's comments about the calendar, and I know he was talking about instructional days, and we've gone from there. When you had said we usually do it in February, because people have been asking me, I have told them we usually do it in March. I thought we usually did it in March because of snow days, because you know by then you're supposed to be finished snow days. But if I'm wrong, I just wanted to add, I do think there's a lot of confusion with the calendar, and I think it happens every year because people want to know when graduation is, they want to know all these things, and this year it's compounded by extra things. For example, and I know you don't want to give too many updates all the time, but I still think there's some confusion, even with myself, about when possibly school could end, if there's another work stoppage or whatever. And I know this sounds silly, I don't like to bring up silly things, but for example, there's a camp that a lot of kids attend on June 18th, and I'm like, well, I'm waiting until the end of March to sign up, but at some point there might need to be a calendar before, just some kind of calendar. We're working through some announcement that the calendar will be released in March, but these are some of the possibilities. I know that's hard to say, but...
Yes, so the proposal of the calendar for next year has nothing to do with snow days or the timing right now, yeah. But the announcement of graduation does. And so historically, March has been the month to announce high school graduation for the current year. And February has been historically when we approve next year's calendar. But with a number of matters on the table, and in hopes to eventually, receive an opinion from the non-binding arbitrators, my hope is that we've given enough time to allow me to come forward with one proposed schedule for next year, rather than giving you a schedule in February. Okay. Then giving you an update if something is approved and that has to be changed in April, and then we keep jockeying this along.
Okay, and I misunderstood. So February's next year, March is the June dates.
Yeah,
typically.
Well, March is really just the graduation date. And so, in all fairness, to answer your question about when the last day of school is, my response at this moment in time is it'll be on or before June 30th.
Okay, and that's fair. That's what
I know that sounds
that's fine.
I'm not trying to cop out of this. I'm just telling you that there's a lot of variables. Our home schools are trying to plan for their summer. A lot of people are challenged with my response, and I get that. I understand. I've been through this a number of times. I wish I could give them a better indication of where we are. I'm hopeful that, as we made it a public notice that we did have the non-binding arbitration hearings. So I made that known back in January when they would be. So those occurred. We're waiting for some feedback. Hopefully we get that feedback and we're able to, put that process behind us and really have some clarity to next year as well as clarity to this year.
Okay, so my confusion is now no more confusion. So March, the graduation date will be given no matter what, and as far as end of school, I like your answer. Yeah, it's the best we can do.
Yeah, we can set a graduation date under the law. We can do that, and we can, regardless of work stoppages or not, we can graduate our students.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any other old business? Is there any new business?
Just real quick, I know we have a light agenda, and I want to let the public have a chance to talk during courtesy of the floor. As board members, we get a lot of information from PSBA. I'm actually looking over at Ralph, and he's got one of the things that they give to us right on top of his thing there. We have a basic level of service right now, and we have been approached that there are higher levels of service, and there's different things included. And we don't have a chance as a board to talk about that because we can't, so I want to bring that up here. We do use it as a second check if we're doing something, what does PSBA say and everything. And I think that, it would probably behoove this board, 9 new board members, all of us are under 3 years, to really reach out and see is it economically possible for us to be able to up to the next service. I know that there's a bunch of us who are interested in legislative roundups and going, to different trainings and seminars. We're trying to make the most out of what we can do for the community. So and I don't know if a week is enough time, but if we could get maybe something on the agenda for next week that says, it would cost X amount of money to have this next level or top level, and what that would include, and maybe we can have that as a voting item.
That's a very good comment. In fact, the board president and vice president met, I'm going to say in January, maybe with the regional representative for PSBA about the various additional services that are available to us, and then we spoke after that and agreed that person should come before the board here, either at our next work session or a board meeting, present some of that same information, so that when we bring an item, as you're suggesting, forward to change it, I'd want you to be informed. I know some of the services that are available, but I think that rep would probably be the best, option. So if it's okay, is it okay if we put that on the agenda for March and have them come at the work session in March?
My only concern about March is we're going to be going over a lot of bids in March. That's probably going to be a pretty extensive meeting.
Do you want me to try to get them in for the board meeting next week? It's not on the agenda right now. I could try to do that. I think they live pretty local, so that might be an opportunity to have them be here.
Yeah, I think it's a fairly, not a very controversial topic here, so I think if it could work to their schedule. And I know that I think one of the events that a couple of board members had possibly looked at is in March, and it does give you, I think it's free if you're at the next level, or it costs you X amount per board member. So this could be one of those things where it could wind up saving us enough money right off the bat. So
you want me to try to do it for next week?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be
Has everyone okay with that? Yeah. All right, so we'll add that, as long as we can get her here.
And I just want to, Mike, thank you for bringing that up, and just while we're here, because it's very hard for me to go during the day in the school year, and I know there's some great opportunities that I feel like I'm finally ready after 2 years to delve into. And if anyone didn't get a chance, I did just read our magazine last night, and this magazine this month, I don't know if you guys get it yet, you probably do. It was actually, I read it every month, but this one I found a little more helpful. So if anyone hasn't gotten a chance and it's on your pile of stuff in your homes, it was a very helpful articles in it this month. So.
Okay. Then we'll add that to the agenda. Hopefully we can get her in here. Anything else?
Is there any other new business? Okay, it's time for courtesy of the floor. Anyone who wishes to speak for 3 minutes, please approach the microphone.
Jenny Geis, kindergarten teacher. Well, I can't speak for all of our kindergarten teachers. I am sure their appreciation is similar to mine in thank you for the admission of student clarification for kindergarten. It is greatly appreciated. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Is there anyone else for courtesy of the floor?
I can't stand at the podium anymore. So
Oh.
I'll have to. I don't think that's.
Okay, we'll get you a mic.
Candy Alaba, Lower Providence. I have a couple questions. We were looking at the consultants. I know it was discussed at the property committee meeting. A lot of information was given out at the property committee meeting, and the prices for all this, and it's kind of a little bit of sticker shock for consultants. My only question is, why are there no consultants hired from this immediate area, or even this county? I mean, the closest we have is one from Bartow. The rest are, I think we should maybe patronize. I'm sure we have consultants, very good consultants here in this county. I don't see why we keep going out of the county. I mean, if Batavia is recommending this, maybe we should say to Batavia, start looking at what we have in the area. We should be patronizing businesses in this area. We have roofers and electricians, very good ones in this area. My two questions here, the last two about Skyview. They're going to perform a core sampling and patching services. Now, Arcola was built to have a building attached to it. It was set up for that because at one time, after they built Arcola, the building that was going to be attached was a second high school. At the time, they thought they were going to need 2 high schools. So Arcola was set up for it. Now, Skyview was attached to Arcola. There should be a warning for these 2 things that they're going to perform. A core sample, well, it goes without saying that I'm sure there's asbestos at Arcola. That goes without saying. But Skyview is only 8 years old. EI Associates was involved with that. Just like there is a warranty on the roof at Eagleville. And I know you're looking into having somebody do that. But to spend this money to have all this done, if there's issues with the roof at Skyview, there should not be any issues with the roof at Skyview. I mean, I don't know what Mr. Fess had to say, but, I mean, this surprised me when I saw this.
There's 130-some roofs here in the district, which sounds to me like that's crazy, but every roof's been inventoried and been graded. So, you know, I can't speak exactly to what the classification is on a particular roof. You can't look at it as a building, you have to look at a roof section, each one is different. So that's the way they're evaluated. But, you know, to directly answer your question about that, how so many roofs were.
I mean, I don't know. I don't remember because there was a lot of information. I went to all the meetings about Skyview. They did hold resident meetings for the immediate residents. I'm just curious. There has to be some kind of reporting. If asbestos testing was originally done before they attached Skyview, I would imagine it would have to be. I mean, I know there's federal regulations, but I think that's something that maybe should be looked into. I mean, the money, I mean, this is like over $155,000 just for consultants. So I think if you can maybe save $1 here or there, it would be, I mean, I'm sure Mr. Jacoby left some kind of files or reports that involved what took place with Skyview and Arcola. Oh, and one more thing, just FYI, March is the worst time for snow in this area. We get hit really bad. And my husband came in the house today and said, it's going to be bad next month because I was out in the yard and the squirrels were still burying their walnuts. He said, so I think instead of you know, it's nice today in February, but we always manage to get slammed in March in the school district. So that's going to affect the kids going to school. And like you said, on or before June 30th. So just something to keep in mind.
Please don't jinx us.
Is there anyone else for courtesy of the floor?
Our own Cecily Tynan. Jim Malik, Worcester. If you could maybe help me out, Mr. Superintendent, with regards to labor negotiations, who on the board does not have a conflict with labor negotiations, including teacher negotiations? Can you tell me that? Who on the board does not have a conflict with labor negotiations, including teacher negotiations? Does not. Or if you prefer, who does? If that's easier for you, who does? Is your mic on? I can't hear you.
There you go.
We have a member of the board who is also a teacher in another school district who is a member of PSEA, and they have not participated in the contract negotiations, but under the law are eligible to vote on the contract when it comes forward. That's for the teacher contract. They can be involved in negotiations for the other contracts that were in negotiation. And then we have another individual recently added to the board who's... who
would that be?
Well, Ms. Reese works for Springford School District, so she's a member of PSEA.
Right.
And Mr. Navarrete, his wife is a teacher here in Methacton School District at Eagleville Elementary School. And he as well can not participate in the contract negotiations, but can vote on the contract once it's presented to the board for approval.
And who else?
I have no information that anyone else on the board would have a conflict.
Anybody else have a spouse who's a teacher?
I believe there's one other member of the board that has a spouse that is a teacher in another district.
Is that a disqualification?
It is not.
Anybody else have a spouse who's part of a negotiating team?
No.
So nobody else has a disqualification that you know of?
That I know of, that is correct.
You sure about that?
Mr. Mullock,
I'm sure about that I'm correct, yes.
Mr. Mullock, if you're speaking towards my spouse being part of the casual on-call, that is not a...
Part of what?
She's a casual on-call for the school district.
What's that?
You don't know, Mr. Mullock?
What's that?
So when there is a secretary's position or something that needs to be filled as a substitute, she could be called to fulfill that role, or an aide.
She's a district employee?
No.
Oh,
that individual, casual on-calls are hired by the district for performance in roles needed in a substitute basis from time to time. And they're not covered under any bargaining unit agreement.
So you don't feel that's a problem?
I'm sorry?
You don't feel that's a problem?
I said that you asked me whether that there were conflicts, and I presented the two that I thought were of conflict. The other items are not of conflict under the law.
No, you don't feel that's a problem. I just asked you.
Jim, do you feel that's a problem?
Can I address the board, or?
I think the law specifically addresses that matter for the members of the board and for the public.
Mr. Mullock,
I'm not a judge. I don't determine the law.
Liz, you can stop the clock. You can stop. 1 second.
For full transparency's sake.
Liz, Mr. Mullock, you can stop the clock. Mr. Mullock,
as far as transparency,
Mr. Mullock, this was brought up with this.
I have to address the chair, right? So that's what I'm going to do. As far as the capital projects go, are the bids going to occur that you guys are going to do? Are they going to be union workers or non-union workers?
Won't know until we receive the bids.
Well, normally, what are they? Union workers or non-union workers?
It depends on who bids.
Well, in your experience, what do the bids go to?
In my experience with the field project, some of the workers were non-union and some of the workers were union.
Would it be fair to say that the majority are union workers?
In the field project, I would say the majority were the non-union workers.
Please wrap up, Dr. Mullock.
Sure. Is there a board policy that deals with board violations of board policy? That's my last question.
Who are you asking?
Either one. I'll take either one. I don't care. But you would be more adept on it than, well, you're on the policy committee, right?
I'm not.
No? Well, I'll take anybody.
So you're asking whether or not there's a policy
that deals with board violating board policy, the board violating board policy.
The policy that you might be referring to was maybe the former censure policy? Is that what you're referring to?
Which doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Right. So is there currently a policy that deals with the board violating board policy?
All of our policies are available online. Please wrap up. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, obviously, there is no policy. So my suggestion to you is to develop a policy that deals with it. Thanks.
Is there anyone else for courtesy of the floor?
Joseph Bickelman, Lower Providence. I just want to, I feel kind of left out. I asked a few questions that were probably one-word answers in the past couple months about early admission to kindergarten, where's the superintendent's academy being held, and various other questions that would be one-word answers. And I just watched Dr. Malik here get responses from board members and the superintendent. So I feel kind of left out because Kim Aubrey-Larceny says that she was only thinking of our time, the taxpayers' time, and they didn't want that discourse to go back and forth, and the board's time. So that's why my questions didn't get answered. But, you know, we're the taxpayers. I think they should get answered, and it would be an enhancement to this board. You're doing a great job, I think. The way you're moving things forward and the discussion around items is very impressive. So I commend you there. I'd like to thank Timothy Bricker for finding the utilities being charged incorrectly to the 400 series, the 400 object series, which is, I just cannot believe that that was going on for so long. The auditors didn't catch that. It's just incredible that the auditors wouldn't catch something so simple as that. You know, the 600 series is electricity, water, things like that. They're being charged to a category for contracted services for repairs and things like that. So it's a distortion of our expenditures that exist at the Department of Education for the past couple years. And you've had business managers, you've had accounting supervisors and people like that. It's just terrible that a simple thing like that, it just goes to show you what's been going on here at this district. So I think, you know, Mr. Bricker's looking into some things that needed to be looked at for a long, long time.
I'd like to respond to you about the questions from the audience, and that is to say we are formulating a process for that to improve that. Thank you.
Liz, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in for one thing. This is just as a follow-up to Mr. Bickelman that we do listen to. I hope that you'll appreciate the fact that you're now find attached to the list of bills, the list of the credit card payments. I know you've been asking for that. You weren't at the finance meeting. But I want
one thing there, it says there was a charge to Walmart or something like that. It doesn't describe what was purchased. It just says Walmart.
Okay. I just want to make sure that you saw it.
It was not golf
John Andrews, Lower Providence. Among the job descriptions that were offered up this evening is one for Director of Facilities. And when I reviewed that, not that I'm an expert at doing such things, it seemed to emphasize maintenance a lot. And then it comes to the list of contracts to be let. We said where we have a slew of a continuing slew of consulting work relative to facilities, conditions, supervision of contracts, et cetera, et cetera. And now, when when the incumbent, Mr. Fritz, came into the district, possibly at the urging of Mr. Whiteleather, who lived out in that distant area also, the job description was changed because Mr. Fritz at that time, as I recall, didn't have an engineering degree. I think that we're getting a fine performance in the area of maintenance from Mr. Fritz, but we're doing a lot of work around because he's not really a director of facilities. Facilities in the sense of being able to specify what needs to be improved. And he in my experience, he doesn't bring to the position the qualities that the previous engineer overseeing facilities had. So I think that the board ought to give some study to the idea of having separate positions for facilities maintenance and for facilities maintenance in regards to cleaning, snow removal, performance of the utilities, and I think that there should be a separate position for things like roof overhauls, which is a continuing thing, and Mr. Fretz correctly noted that we have over 100 roofs just a few minutes ago. And also, to support my position that there should be a separate director of facilities.
Kindly wrapped up.
I was hoping that you weren't just a timekeeper like the board president. And I'll get to a discussion on that. But I think, we're just starting out on a 10-year program of needed overhauls. So I think, again, having the two positions has a lot of merit, in my opinion. With regard to the board vice president's immediate comment that she's a timekeeper just like Kim Larseny's, I think that's a disrespect of democracy, and it's out of touch with what's done in most other school districts in this community, in this county. And I think that you get valuable insight from the public here, and I don't know where else you get valuable insight from the public. So I think you discourage the public to the harm of the district. And you ought to rethink your 3 minutes and your stupid adherence to it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else for courtesy of the floor? Seeing none, we will... Sorry, motion to adjourn. Mike? Second? All in favor?